podcast excellence since 2005. This is the King of Podcasts radio network, kingofpodcasts.com.
NXT has become the next level to nowhere.
Woo! Hey, this is the Nature Boy Rick Flair, and believe it or not, whether you like it or don't like it, learn to love it, because you have to listen to Wrestling is Real. It is the best thing going today. Woo!
The worldwide leader of podcasting excellence, the King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents The Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
Welcome to the Wrestling is Real podcast. King of Podcasts here with you. Kingofpodcasts.com is the website where you find all of my content. I redesigned it again. I can't help myself. I don't know. I just keep thinking I got to make some changes to it. It looks a little bit better. I cleaned it up. It looks nicer. Got a better background through it. A little more functional. So you see all of my programming there. All my social media handles are there, along with where you can find the show, which is, you can find it over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and of course it's on the YouTube channel at King of Podcasts. You can also subscribe there. Please go ahead and subscribe if you can, and help me get to 500 subscribers. Get myself up to that next level so I can go ahead and start monetizing the show on YouTube. I'm hoping to get there. Something like that. And really, that's just what I'm trying to do. Podcast right here and the YouTube channel. So I can, monetize just a little bit. Not trying to get carried away on it. This is what I do with this all together. Now, tonight we're going to talk about NXT and the issues that are surrounding it, from the call-ups that go up to the main roster to who is on the main roster now and how long they've been there. It's a lot to go into about it. So as we look back right now, since 2022, SummerSlam 2022 was the real breaking point as to when everything changed. Because now we're getting a little more time to kind of really look at the evolution of what Triple H has done and what's coming up as the last 3 years of this brand, of WWE in general and NXT. Now, we're coming off of a couple of different events that happened over the weekend with Grand Slam Australia for AEW, which I enjoyed the show. I watched Mac McClung win the dunk contest in the NBA All-Star Saturday night, and that right there was the ending of the broadcast there. And then around 10:50 p.m. Eastern Time, Grand Slam Collision, the Grand Slam Australia Collision started up on TNT. Got 500,000 viewers for roughly 11 o'clock at night to 1 in the morning. Not bad. Started off with 1 million viewers getting into the first match of the night. So that's pretty good. They were able to get that kind of look right there for Collision, which was a nice change for them. And if they wanted to do something to have some kind of programming there after NBA All-Star Saturday night, well, they did. And I guess AEW delivered. And also, this was a tape broadcast, not live. I never cared about all the other ancillary things that the juvenile delusional folks on social media got into when it comes to the 18-foot by 18-foot ring instead of 20 by 20. Or the timing of the show, having to be at night when you want to watch it on Max instead of watching it live, right? I mean, we're used to watching Wrestle Kingdoms at different times of night, and I never catch it live. I don't know about you. And then you have everything with the whole idea, the show was supposed to be a pay-per-view, but it was never said to be a pay-per-view because it was being put in a stadium, and then halfway through the whole process, or months before the event was going to take place, I think it was at the end of last year, they decided to go ahead and downgrade from a stadium to an arena. The arena looked good, pretty loud. The matches were pretty good for the night. They sandwiched in 2 really good matches to kind of get things together. We did have a title change with Toni Storm becoming AEW Women's Champion again. Harley Cameron with a nice run trying to go to the TBS title against Mercedes Moné, and that was great to go and see her out there and get a chance. She's definitely over. So I want to see her somewhere in that women's division stay around, and somewhere near that main event level if she can, or just somewhere into the titles, whatever you can do. Kenny Omega will Ospreay against Don Callis family. Love that. So everything that we saw for Grandson was fine. Then NXT had Vengeance Day, and their setup, they didn't have any title changes, but Stephanie Vaquer became Women's North American Champion. So now her and Giulia are both individual women's champions on the brand. And this is after beating Fallon Henley. And then Fraxiom won. Oba Femi retained his North American title. Giulia retained her women's championship. And Eddy, Thorpe, and Ethan Page secured victories on the night as well. So that's everything that happened there with Vengeance Day. But like we said, at the end of the night, Giulia, Stephanie Vaquer holding their respective belts, and Jordynne Grace comes out to confront. That's all we got from that. It's a lot of talent right there. Of just those names we have right there, there's a lot of talent. Outside of WWE, right? We know that all those women right there, when it comes to Giulia or Stephanie Vaquer or Jordynne Grace, if you gave, let's just go into smaller promotions, just for example. If Court Bauer had the chance to go ahead and book any of those three, if Billy Corgan got to book any of those three for NWA, it's Court Bauer and MLW, right? If Tommy Dreamer got to go ahead and book all those three for TNA, they would do quite justice for all those stars. AEW already has a lot of people on their roster. Doesn't mean that they couldn't do well with these types of stars. I don't know. But I've always tried to figure out what it is that I'm getting in my thought process of why I'm so concerned when I see certain stars, free agents that are coming over to the company, and even the stars that are coming in from, say, the AEW turn back around. Okay, so now we have a new one with Ricky Starks, now Ricky Saints. I could care less about the change of the name. Yes, he's honoring the New Orleans Saints, and he's from New Orleans. So, fine. Not sure what the change was for, but he's gone with Ricky Starks for a long time. I don't think it makes much of a difference if he decides to change his name, if it means something for merchandise, if he gives up that, I guess. I don't know. But the fact that he changes it to Ricky Saints, if there's something that happens with him that he gets to go and take off somewhere on NXT and then makes the call up, and WWE is able to go ahead and monetize merchandise because he could do something that could become very much a merch seller. I don't know. But they're going to use him. And so there's a lot of free agents that are up in that NXT division right now that doesn't feel developmental at all. And I say that because look at how many stars you have right now that are in the mix. Some that keep going back down to the main, back down to NXT. Let me put it like this. Of some of the stars we have here that have been pretty prominent for NXT, you have a number of stars that are kind of still lingering around from the NXT UK days. And a lot that got debuted when we had the switch from the rainbow back to the black and gold in 2022. Again, this was all the changes when Vince was out of the picture. And you didn't have Vince and Bruce Pritchard handling things as developmental down in NXT. And then everything changed. We know that the amplification of having some bigger names on that roster has to be because of the CW. They're on network television with that. So they're doing that part. But the thing is that we're still the same way where we were. There's one thing to be said about when Triple H was running NXT, and there would still be certain stars that would be picked up off of the NXT roster, say from 2019 to 2022. You might have some stars that would be picked up off the roster and then brought up to that main roster and then have a chance to go and succeed. Right. But then you got to ask yourself, okay, well, you have all these other stars that were new when Vince was still in there with the rainbow version of NXT. And a number of these stars we have right here, how many years are you supposed to stay down at NXT? If it's a developmental territory, how many years do you hold on to that? Well, it sounds like we're not getting that. As we know, we're getting the ID program that's already in place now. Now there are championships for the WWE ID. I don't know why that is, but okay. So Triple H just set that up. Now you have the ID, the new promotions that'll be territorial for WWE, which makes NXT a standalone brand. So anything that made that a developmental is one thing. But then the question is, we're now then running 3 brands. So NXT now is absolutely standalone. So the idea of call-ups, are we kind of like, if we're going to even have anything doing like that, are these just like a transfer portal where one goes to the other? It feels like that's what we're doing right now. It's just talent switch. So the plan of letting NXT stand alone, but then if you decide to go ahead and take any stars and take them over into the main roster to perform on Netflix or USA or pay-per-view, it doesn't matter. It's not even about a sink or swim scenario. At least when we had the point where NXT was what it was, for the Shield, for the Wyatt family, for Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, Claudio Castagnoli, and all the others that came around that were free agents, right? And that was in 2015, 2016, where the main roster talent of Ring of Honor was getting pillaged. And why not? And some of TNA's talent was being pillaged. It could be done because that's how things were at that point. It was a real moment of strength for WWE. And remember, we didn't like what the main roster looked like, so NXT was much more important because of the talent we had there. We're at that same moment again. Nothing has changed. We haven't learned anything from that. I would think that Triple H would have learned from that in the first place. But I digress. And I look at the names of stars we have right now that have been around, and I'm like, I mean, right now, there's just some of the stars they have currently, and I don't know if they're going to be doing much else of anything right now. They've had some that have been down there for a long time. So Tony D'Angelo has been down there since 2021. And then in 22, he was part of the Rainbow brand. And what has happened with him? No change to his character. He's won championships, right? NXT North American Champion, Heritage Cup, all this stuff. What else? He's been down there 4 years. Nothing makes me feel confident he's ever going to move up to that main roster. Let's see who else. Andre Chase. That Chase University gimmick has been down there. They ran it through. Now it's done. What do you do with Andre Chase? You had that whole Chase University gimmick going on for 4 years almost. And they ran with it, and they did everything they wanted to do. Rich Holland basically just destroyed the whole thing, right? By that whole buildup of Andre Chase, all those segments of him in the classroom, everything they did with the whole training and stuff. And Andre Chase might have been so successful in doing well in NXT. And remember, how many times did we also lose? So NXT is just made to have jobbers? But Andre Chase has been down there for so long. What are we doing with him? He's still there. And there's never been a thought that we need to have lifers in NXT. Like, is that something that some of the stars that are in that performance center now, who knows if that performance center is going to be around after a while? Because they're going to probably take whatever the UFC has for their own style of performance center, and the redundancy of a WWE performance center in Orlando will go away because they have the ID program. This is all in flux. But there's no pathway, no pipeline exactly to just say, okay, here's talent that's developmental. Move them up. It's like a farm system. The farm system is broken right now. They're restructuring it, but now NXT is a secondary brand to Raw and SmackDown, and that's it. What's the purpose that it serves? It's just another division of WWE that is meant to be inferior to Raw and SmackDown rosters. So what are you doing to those stars? Are they just supposed to stay down there? Are they supposed to do anything else? And then of the stars they bring on that are free agents. Okay, it's one of those things where Vince would be like, all right, their TNA talent doesn't matter. They got to work their way back, and they have to adapt to our system, our culture, our style of wrestling. Okay, that's fine. So when you have Ricky Saints now, he's going to have to adapt. When Lexus King came in, formerly Brian Pillman Jr., he has to adapt. Ethan Page also has to adapt. But the difference now of the Triple H version of the era of NXT, where Shawn Michaels is in play, and Triple H is overseeing everything, what's happening is there are certain stars that will get to be in that main event picture pretty quickly in NXT. It's not like they're building up on the short end. They are kind of just, if somebody was already a big deal outside of the company, but not at the level of the main roster, well, anybody AEW or TNA, well, we can put them in NXT. They're going to have to be there. And so it's that climb up. What do you have to do to go and climb out of NXT and get up there? Are any of these stars looking to go and do that? That's the other question too. So let's keep looking. And remember all these different things they have in terms of trying to build up stars to look at. Like it was NXT Level Up. Javon Evans came out of that, right? These other little ancillary programs that we'd have, they did. When you look at the Angel family, and they got, Stax Lorenzo. Also, 3 years in that division there. Charlie Dempsey. Okay, NXT UK 2021. He's been on the regular NXT brand since 22. The son of Lord Steven Regal or William Regal. What are we doing with him? He's still sitting down there. When we had Brawling Brutes, no thought of moving him up there. I mean, nothing. Oh, when you have the collective with Pete Dunne and I forget who it was they were working with, they never thought of Charlie Dempsey being up there and trying to do some move up with him at all. No, nothing. Dante Chen. Is he still there? I don't remember. 2021 he started there. Edris Enofe and I forget his tag team partner also in the same way, being down there for a long time. Hank Walker's been on there since 22. Javier Bernal's been since 21. Robert Stone, formerly of TNA. Robbie E. has been sitting down there forever. Trick Williams since 2021. Now, he's been champion over and over. Why have they not pulled the trigger on him? Why is he still not moved up yet? What are they waiting for? Roxanne Perez since April 2022. What are we waiting for? 3 years. When do you want to decide to go ahead and do something with them? Are we having a fear if they decide to go and call any of these folks up? Because we'll get back to the roster on NXT. Let's get to the stars that we have up already in that main roster. And where have they gone? What have they done with them? So we have some stars that are in there. And how have they done? Let's give us four names just to start. Austin Theory, Carmelo Hayes, Tiffany Stratton, Bron Breakker. And so far, Tiffany Stratton does have the Money in the Bank briefcase. She's been put in prominent storylines towards that main event. I mean, she's in the secondary women's program on SmackDown. Fine. She's been attached to the women's champion at various points, whether going up against Bayley or partnering up with Nia Jax, things like that. Bron Breakker, off and on Intercontinental Champion, and he's not even on TV that much. I mean, we see him, but he's been so... I mean, it's so little we see him anyway. He's not been showcased. On the Netflix era, nothing. Very little, if all. And then Austin Theory, so they've paired him with Grayson Waller, who was part of the 2022 Gray and Bro era. So those two have been tag teaming. They're just kind of sitting there. We're not going to split them apart. Not yet, anyway. And Austin Theory, after all that work you had with him working with Vince McMahon and building him up, And what else? I mean, you had him United States champion, had him face John Cena. And he's just been lost. Him and Grayson Waller. And Grayson Waller and Austin Theory have just kind of been fodder. They're just kind of around. They're not even in the tag team picture right now. On the NXT tag team picture they were. To go after Fraxiom. Nathan Fraser and Axiom. Like, they're just being used just to be used. But okay, but like, where's the direction for them to go ahead and move forward? I would have thought Austin Theory would be up the ladder right now. But he's not. Is it part of the reason why I think that Triple H is also considering that there's just main roster stars, that it will be up to Triple H if they lose their spot? That there's not a competitive environment to see these 4 stars right here that could take the spots of others. Okay, like for Austin Theory, Carmelo Hayes, Tiffany Stratton, Bron Breakker. Say if you want to have them try to take the spot. Okay, like Austin Theory, Carmelo Hayes, Bron Breakker. Go ahead and try to take the spot of Seth Rollins or Cody Rhodes or Randy Orton or LA Knight, or, think about it. Get out of that lower tier of, around LWO or around DIY and all these others, right? Like, think about it. Push them up. They're up to the level. They're going to push the bloodline out of the way. Does anybody think that's even going to happen? Where's the competition of saying, you know what? Like Stone Cold Steve Austin would say, if you're not there to be the Universal Champion or World Heavyweight Champion, okay, who is there out of those 3 names right there that are going to push Gunther off the top of the spot? What happened to fighting for their spot? Fighting for the top spot. Is there anything that's fostering any kind of behavior that's going to cause we're going to get that? No. And we're seeing that right now. That's where the mediocrity stays in place, because Triple H wants it that way. Or whoever else is running creative wants it that way. But status quo. We're going to just keep it in stasis. Keep it in flux. We're not changing anything. We're going to keep whichever stars we want right there. We're not going to confront some of these younger stars up against these veterans. No, we don't need to do that. We have enough stars right now that have been around for 10, 15 years. We don't need to worry about that. Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, no, we don't need anybody to go up against them and take their spot. No, they can go and fight another feud like they've done the last 5, 6 times. And the last, dozen times they've done over the last 20 years. Does that make sense to you? I don't think it does. But I think that makes more sense as to why I feel the frustration with what's been going on here with wrestling, because in this world of WWE, it doesn't give me anything, because where is that part of mid-card purgatory where we're trying to see people trying to go and break through the glass ceiling? Is it being allowed? Is there anyone getting a chance to showcase themselves so they can get there? If they're doing such great work at NXT right now, right? I mean, do you expect them to go and do anything else? Like, there's just certain stars in their spot, and that's all there is to it. DIY is occupying a spot. Do they need to be there? Motor City Machine Guns, do they need to be occupying a spot? I mean, I could run down the line of the stars we have here that I'm asking myself, are they... They're taking spots off of people, but like, do we need them to be there? Because I don't know. Just looking on the Raw version right now, okay, AJ Styles, he's back, never lost his spot, right? Bayley has never lost her spot. Let's keep looking here. Che Gable, I don't know. He's never really gotten himself up to the other level. Like him going after Sami Zayn and all that stuff, and just the Wyatt Six stuff he's been doing. It bothers me where Chad Gable should be higher up the card. This guy's done everything. He's been embarrassed. He has done everything that's called for. This guy is this generation's Kurt Angle. He is. And why this guy is not up higher and not being saddled with this. If it's not Alpha Academy, now it's American made. He should not be saddled or anchored with those people, with the Creeds and Ivy now. That's a waste of his time. a waste. Dakota Kai takes up a spot. Like, what is the damage control? I mean, I get with Io Sky, obviously, with her talent, but she's also anchored when she was part of that whole damage control scene as well. Dominic Mysterio, another big star, anchored by Judgment Day. Dragon Lee, anchored by LWO. And then there's the part about certain stars that they just, when they decide to go ahead and change the gimmick altogether and just put them back to where they were. No, let's not improve the gimmick. Let's not do something a little bit different with them. Move forward. No, we're going to move backward on these people. So we're going to go back to their indie characters. So basically, Eric and Ivar now are War Raiders. They have the names that WWE gave them, but now they're just whatever. And I look and I say to myself, okay, then there's the favorites that Triple H has. So if Bronson Reed wasn't hurt right now, I know he'd be up here somewhere prominent. They obviously like Bron Breakker because he was built up down there in NXT. Same thing with Gunther. They built him up down there in NXT UK and NXT and all that. And great. So there's the certain favorites they're going to have. Finn Balor, obviously a favorite down there. On the main roster, they're going to keep where he is. There's just some people that are never going to lose their spot. I don't think they can do anything but just keep the spot they have. And that's it. Because like now there's the rumblings that AJ Styles and Finn Balor are going to face each other at WrestleMania. I don't know if that's going to be true. But anyways. Jey Uso, Jimmy Uso, even splitting them apart, they're going to be where they are. Listen, with Jey Uso, I think they fell into it by accident, the entrance, which is the one thing I think that's really stood out for him. Like everything from the bloodline benefited him wholly to become main event. But the direction they got him here, the only thing they've done to increase his value aside, it's just the entrance. That is it. Otherwise, I still need Gunther and Jey Uso to do something more with each other to build up. Yeah, they had some heat. They had to, pull apart this week. Fine. But I need something more out of this storyline. I need something more. They obviously like Karrion Kross, right? I like Karrion Kross. They have totally mishandled this guy. They took away everybody with him right now, except for Scarlett. They've done everything possibly wrong to this character. Meanwhile, Karrion Kross, his best work is on social media. It's not even on television. It's never been on television. If it was in TNA, yes. If he was in MLW, yes. But right now, what's going on here? Karrion Kross does better work, shows his talent more on social media than he does on television. That is seriously wrong. Poorly mismanaged, poorly used, but they like him, so he's still around being done with something. They really like Liv Morgan. They love putting her in the spot. Nothing wrong with her, but also anchored, holding on with Dominic Mysterio and leaving that storyline as it is. I would have preferred to Liv Morgan bail out on Dominic Mysterio already. Like you want to have like a breakup line, whatever, and have them kind of like have their own outs with each other. Fine. New Day, they keep taking people's spots, and there's nobody there that's going to take their spots away. Mismanaged as well. Okay, this group's been around for 15 years as a faction, and now the Big E thing, we're not going to get him back. All right, fine. So we're going to turn them heel instead of just imploding them all together. But they're also taking spots, and nobody's going to retire them. Nobody's going to take their spot from them. No one. Meanwhile, you have people like Ludwig Kaiser, who's going to be held down, who actually should be, just like Chad Gable, should also be up there into that main event. I mean, if that guy shouldn't be IC champion or competing for it, I don't know. The whole Imperium thing's already blown up anyway. Giovanni Vinci's gone. Bye, goodbye. But Ludwig Kaiser, you could do something with him too. They've had featured feuds with him, but they're just TV feuds. They're not putting them on pay-per-view. The fact that he's kind of pulled apart from Gunther, why don't we have some kind of thing with Gunther and Ludwig at each other? I don't even know if there's anything like that right now because Gunther's just like on his own. And Ludwig Kaiser's on his own. It's like there's really no explanation as to what happened to those two anyway. And the whole implosion of Imperium never got explained. Just lost the whole thing in translation. Lyra Valkyria is another star they brought up from NXT. They did what they did with her with Becky Lynch. So it's not as if in NXT they didn't do anything with her to build her up. They brought Becky Lynch down to NXT to work with her in a program. Becky Lynch became NXT champion and Lyra Valkyria took the belt. Okay. But then we're here and it's like, all right, Lyra Valkyria right now is what? Oh, she's Intercontinental Champion right now, the women's side. And absolutely, that belt means nothing to her. Absolutely nothing. But that's an NXT star. And in the plan that Triple H had to build her up and make her important, they have rewarded her when nothing has happened. Like when she comes out, no response from the crowd. Nothing. It's like, well, and nobody really cares. Like, of course, the juvenile delusional social media audience, they're just going to fawn all over her because that's what they're supposed to do. They're just falling in line. Now, I can continue to go on this roster and just look at the names we have that have not been doing anything. Otis was a former Money in the Bank briefcase holder, and you had the great storyline with him and Mandy Rose, nothing. And whole deal with Mandy Rose, also a mistake. The whole toxic attraction, nothing with those folks ever did anything more with them at all. You know? Pete Dunne, you had him in Brawling Bruce, and you broke him off, and he's been like out there, and now he's just fodder for Penta. Like, what? Now, Rhea Ripley's always going to have her spot. Sami Zayn, it's like nobody can take his spot. Sami Zayn is untouchable. There is nothing they can do about getting him off that roster. They need to wedge him into shit. Again, they had him wedged up against Drew McIntyre and Seth Rollins and CM Punk and the whole Royal Rumble bit. And then to give Sami Zayn something to do, okay, we already did everything with him when it comes to Chad Gable, right? That was all last year after WrestleMania. So now we're going to give him Kevin Owens again. Like, we're going to do that one more time. What are you going to possibly do with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn that hasn't been already done? Unsanctioned? They did unsanctioned in Ring of Honor. It's as if they're just throwing it. We're just going to do it again. Oh, we're still going to keep you on TV. So what are you going to guys do, guys? What are you going to do, Kevin? What are you going to do, Sammy? Oh, we're just going to go work together again. All right. But when I look at the names they have right here, and I say to myself, okay, so what are they going to do with them? All right. Off the bat, like I said, of the names on Raw, just on the example, okay? Austin Theory and Bron Breakker and Chad Gable and Dominic Mysterio and Liv Kaiser. Those are all stars right now that should be doing something more. Like, why they're not in the Intercontinental title picture, I don't know. If they're not vying, I mean, you're not seeing any of them going to try to go ahead and take somebody out and upset into the Elimination Chamber. I mean, Mustafa Ali used to do that, right? Austin Theory used to do that. Like, that was a thing that actually used to happen too. We used to get surprises. Like, okay, somebody got upset. So one of the major stars, yeah, you let one of these other up-and-coming stars get a win on somebody. They get a win, not parody booking, but they get a win on somebody on something important. And then you take a risk. You take a chance on a star and put them in a match and see what they're going to do. When Austin Theory was in Elimination Chamber, I thought he did great. Was it Grayson Waller, one of those two? I don't remember. But, like, we had this going on. And now we're at the point where we have factions that mean nothing. And then the other thing they're also trying to embed in here is now we have some stars that, for the sake of the fact that AEW has some contracts that are starting to go by the wayside, and Tony Khan's choosing not to go ahead and renew, and sometimes there's some rufflings as to why they did not stay in AEW for whatever reason, fine. So they move on. Or it's just a bigger payday, whatever the reason might be. Now you got Penta now on that main roster. And for Elimination Chamber, you know, you got a thing where they've been showcasing him a lot on Netflix. You know, they make a big deal out of him, gave him great big entrance, awesome. He's been winning basically on squash matches for the most part. He's had some matches where he's had to work a little bit more, and he's had to sell, but he's won. But now, what are we doing leading up to Elimination Chamber, and who's going to be facing anybody of any of the stars we have? We're going to have the same people at the very top on March 1st in Toronto. Remember that. Off the bat, men's Elimination Chamber match right now is CM Punk, John Cena, Drew McIntyre, Logan Paul, Damian Priest, Seth Rollins. Those are 6 stars. Will never lose their spot. Never lose their spot. On the Elimination Chamber match side, for the women, we do have a difference. Roxanne Perez did get her win. She's the one outside of the normal gamut where she gets in this week and wins her match, a qualifier, to get into the match now with Liv Morgan, Bianca Belair, Alexa Bliss, Bayley, and Naomi. Again, Alexa Bliss never lost her spot. Right back where she is. Naomi's in here because of the fact that, yes, there was the whole idea where she came back and she did her work at TNA for a year and it was great. And she built herself back up and, like, you know, chip on her shoulder, showed she's important. She's back to where she is now. I mean, she's still Trinity. Like, it's like whatever she did over in TNA doesn't matter now. It just showed, okay, we should bring you back. And Naomi is now by default teaming up with Bianca Belair because Jade Cargill's still out. But then you look at it right here, okay, Bianca Belair and the fact that she's been saddled in a tag team for over a year, tag team titles, whatever, like that's a waste of her. When you've already built her up as such a big championship star. But that's what they right now have right now in that women's division. That's it. I mean, there is change because we've had certain stars that have gone by the wayside. They're not there anymore. Still no Becky Lynch. I don't know if she's coming back or not, but maybe not. And on the outside, you still see Tiffany Stratton now with Trish Stratus that's going to go on against Nia Jackson, Candice LeRae. And Candice LeRae needs to have a spot because she's, you know, her and Gargano, they got to have a spot. I mean, are they getting over with the crowd right now? Are they people that, like, all of a sudden, like, we're getting see merching with them and we're like so caught up on them? No. They occupy a spot because that's what Triple H wants. And that's how they're going to keep it. The unsanctioned match with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, probably will expect something more out of that anyway. Doesn't matter, right? They'll do whatever they're going to do. And I will imagine Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, they're going to have a whole feud that's going to go on for a while. The fact that they're going to have this feud that just started up, and you think it's going to go for a month? No, it's going to keep going. They're going to just keep going. Doesn't matter. Doesn't make a difference. Other stars we're looking at right now. Here's the other one. Cora Jade. What about the NXT stars instead of, okay, we're not going to use them on the main roster, right? No, we're going to take them over to TNA. So look right now, we're getting the crossover with TNA and NXT. For whatever reason. It doesn't make much of a difference of TNA or NXT having these stars. But for some reason, again, the juvenile delusional social media audience, they're happy about it. Like pigs in shit, they're just happy. Moose is coming over to NXT and bringing his X Division title over for a match. Okay. Or Cora Jade is going over to TNA. And like, what are we doing here? It doesn't make a difference. They're just kind of here, just doing whatever. And then you have stars that they kind of like stopped and started with. Lola Vice has been around for a couple of years. Thea Hale, part of it, also saddled with Andre Chase. I don't know if it's going to be much of a difference for her. Janet Parker's been down in NXT for 2 years. Kelani Jordan has been 2 years, and she was North American champion. And right now, she's kind of like just lost in the flux. Zarya, along with Giulia and Stephanie Vaquer, was supposed to come in here and, you know, make a big deal because of the fact of. But remember, now you have these two women's champions in NXT, both with heavy accents. And this loss of identity as to what WWE has been. There's also this putting a round peg in a square hole of trying to get some of these stars and trying to change the dynamic of the wrestlers being all-American, can speak English, or they might be from England or somewhere else, but they just speak prominently English. No, we're going to push Shinsuke Nakamura to speak in a heavy Japanese accent, Penta in a heavy Spanish accent. Same thing with Stephanie Vaquer. Same thing with Giulia. Accent. And they're not going to be able to cut promos. Not as prominent as they could. And the ones that will have been around and they have their spot. And they're never going to lose it. Is this what the juvenile delusional social media audience, is this what you wanted? This is what you asked for? When Triple H told you, we're going to give you what you want. Was this what you wanted? This stagnation that is on purpose from Triple H. Is that what you want? Like, I don't worry about this whole ancillary thing right now about what WrestleMania is going to be. Like, the build for it, it's whatever. Look, if we're going to get to it, we already know that we're going to get Gunther and Jey Uso. Fine, we'll get a good match out of that. I know that. Tiffany Stratton, Charlotte Flair. Well, fine, we'll get a good match out of that. Great. I mean, that's fine. And if we have other matches that are going to get set up, all right. So out of these 2 matches we have coming up for Elimination Chamber in 2 weeks, or actually a week and a half, all right, there's probably a good chance that we'll say, okay, out of the Elimination Chamber right now so far, I would not be surprised if they decide to go the route of CM Punk and Cody Rhodes, and I think that's where they're going to go. Otherwise, and you have the matches that you're going to have with John Cena, Drew McIntyre, Logan Paul, Damian Priest, Seth Rollins. They'll just figure out whether to put them in something. Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, probably will have their own featured match. If AJ Styles and Finn Balor is going to be a match, okay. That they'll put matches together. But I am not resting on my laurels thinking we're going to get some kind of great build-up to get to that point. I don't expect it. And if you do, that's great if you feel that way. But that's the part where like some of the fans here are going to feel like the way they are. But under 60 days, man. We're under 2 months before this thing gets here. Only Elimination Chamber stands in the way. So matches are going to get just brought together at the last minute. Unless they decide to do something after Elimination Chamber to finally start building up for WrestleMania, which would have been nice if they already started. Nothing really festered out of Royal Rumble so far. You're just kind of like just working on it. And when they have to go and focus so much on qualifying matches for Elimination Chamber just to fill time. But again, they get 2.5 hours on that. They got 3 hours on the SmackDown side. But that's the whole part of, okay, among the social media crowd, among the plans and the agenda that Triple H and his team have right now, currently, okay, they have their things the way they want it. But what does that say about the audience out there in the first place? Ask yourself about that. Ask yourself about that, because I looked and I saw a story that came out of WrestleNomics, and also from Wrestling Observer for that matter. Dave Meltzer, you don't like what he says. There was one person that he responded to in his normal Twitter tirades, and one of them that came in was someone that said the only thing that AEW has succeeded in is making WWE better. Their ratings have plummeted with the constant drama and bad booking, and WWE is soaring right now. You can't tell me these matches are so amazing when the vast majority of people have no idea who these fucking guys are. And then Dave Meltzer comes back and says, WWE is doing great, but you'd better rethink that ratings have been plummeting the argument. Raw is down 60% from January 6th. In less than 2 months, they have lost 60% in their drop. WrestleNomics put the story out there. Now, from what we're getting from Netflix in their global views through 7 days, this is a global audience, right? .6 weeks right now. And this is not counting this week. But they've gone from 5.9 million viewers globally to 2.8. Significant. That's not promising. It's not good. So look at the ratings right now overall. SmackDown this past week, 1.384 million. And what was that number I saw here? One second. I got to go back and look, because there was another part I saw where with SmackDown, it had the lowest number. And what was it they said? Lowest viewership of 2025. Wrestling Observer replayed on that. And just to give the context of it, the lowest audience for the show since December 20th. Second on all cable and all television. And the 18 to 49 demo down 12% week to week. But going back to December 6, 2024. This is, again, what, about a month and a half or 2 months after the debut of SmackDown on USA. December 13th, 1.5 million viewers. And then we're within 1.3, 1.4, all the way up until the Royal Rumble. Then the night before Royal Rumble, 1.578. The go home, the follow-up after, 1.5 million. And then the drop, back to 1.3. So whatever the Royal Rumble had, whatever kind of momentum it had, gone. Completely gone. That says everything. The ratings will not support the argument. The ratings will not support what the juvenile delusional fan base that's supporting just about everything that Triple H is doing, except we're starting to see some cracks in the dam that the juvenile delusional social media crowd has already done. WrestleCringe actually writes up and mentions the ratings of SmackDown, saying, no week-long discourse about how they need to pivot their main storylines and Triple H should step down as head of creative. How about that? No, what everybody's all concerned about is the fact that, Ricky Starks, he debuted at NXT last week. And then all the talk right now, see, it's deflection. Now we're at the part where, so Ricky Starks, or Ricky Saints now was on Busted Open, and he made a point that there were veterans in AEW that stuck their nose in his creative business, and that shouldn't have happened. And if they have a problem with saying that, they know how to contact him. Also mentioned that CM Punk, having seemed to be when things started to fall apart, there wasn't an exact moment that caused it, but there was a storm of situations that led to him not being used. Okay. Like, we already knew there was something like that going on as well. And of course, Cope and Chris Jericho are now being called out on this. Anyways. So, someone else comes on and says that Ricky Saints pretty much told AEW he wanted to go to WWE in fall 2023, explains everything, debates are closed. Could have just said that a long time ago instead of acting confused. AEW Defender says that on X. But we're at the same point again. It's like, all right, it doesn't make a difference what we're going to have now, where this constant gossip going on with AEW and going after them, you're losing the focus on what's really going on here. And I hope that I've made my point that the NXT roster is crucial. It at least should still be crucial to the improvement of WWE. It's not a matter of what stars they have up there right now. Okay, I'm not questioning the talent, never did. But it's about how they're being utilized or not being utilized. And whose spots are there, and there's nothing that's being done to allow any room for movement up to get past the glass ceiling. It's as if there's just certain stars that are going to be up there, that upper echelon, the older crop of talent that's been around for a long time, might have been made by Vince, or have been favorites of Triple H and Shawn Michaels and Bruce Pritchard and whoever else for a while now, ever since they took the reins. That's who consumes the main roster right now. There is talent behind them, but their utilization is based on favoritism. Period. Full stop. And everybody else within the company is just going to fall along inside, right? Michael Cole went on Impulsive. Oh, here's the other big deal. Tiffany Stratton didn't do Logan Paul's podcast. All right. Michael Cole says that WWE is a storytelling entity first, not professional wrestling anymore. That's why Netflix wanted us, quote, Netflix understands we're a storytelling entity first. We're not professional wrestling anymore. We haven't been for many years. We're an entertainment product. That might be the most ambassadorial thing to say, but I'm sorry, Michael Cole. I don't see the storytelling. Maybe in a couple of things they have. Storytelling in terms of like what? Like they're MMA fighters? Like on realism? So they don't want to create entertainment or storylines that are fictional or they're just creating on a narrative. They want everything reality based. They don't want to create some kind of conflict. That's the other thing they don't want to do. Because that's something that Vince would do. They don't want to do that. And they also are afraid if they allow someone that they feel like, well, they didn't do very well. I guarantee like Triple H or the folks there, they don't want to go ahead and admit when they're wrong. They don't want to go ahead and have to be the ones to say, I'm sorry, we can't keep you. They don't want to be the bad guys and say, hey, I know you're talented, but we gave you a chance. Regardless of what you think, you didn't like the chance we gave you, but we gave you a chance. And now we're going to have to release you. Because there could be some stars right now, I can make the argument that the way they've been booked, regardless, they're not useful to improving the main roster and improving the ratings, improving the draw. Let's make this clear too. We might have the same cast of characters right now on that main roster, and the reason why fans will continue to come to the shows. But we know they're coming for the circus, for WWE. Those three letters. And it's almost doesn't even matter who is up there. They're more concerned about the circus and making sure you have the things, the participatory parts of this. Even down to the television they do right now as a house show loop. That's how they wanted to make. And I haven't wanted to get to this point and start discussing it this way, but I got no choice. At some point, we had to get to this point and make sense of it, but I also had to wait. And at this point, I've given it enough time to finally make an assessment on the state of this company where they are. Nothing has changed from when Vince was there. Nothing has changed with Triple H being there. They might be throwing things at the wall, seeing if they'll stick when it comes to the developmental system. Okay, so you didn't like the Performance Center. You didn't like the NXT idea. But Triple H wants to treat NXT like a super indie, so you're doing it. So you get to keep it that way. Good for you. But we're not developing new talent. Now, you have some talent that is developed that you have brought up to that main roster. You've done a couple things right with them. A couple of them actually have benefited. I mean, of the main roster, there might be a couple of stars I could say that definitely have been created or have been built up to a bigger level. I don't know if it was organic or not. I just think that some of the stars that have gotten better and improved, like Gunther was like, it was unmistakable. Like it's undeniable that guy's going to be a top star. If it's not there, it'll be somewhere else. Bron Breakker, same thing. Same thing goes for Tiffany Stratton. Same thing goes for any of the women you have right now in NXT when it comes to Roxanne Perez. There's just, you can just see there's just certain things where certain stars are just going to have that right there. And then you have stars down there, stagnant NXT, just not being moved up anywhere. And I don't know, like, do you want to keep it like that? Is that what you want to do? I mean, another star to keep talking about and such a big deal, but like, here's the thing. if you feel like you're getting so much out of some of the stars that you have, you're saying to yourself, okay, you had the whole thing where you had the Next in Line program. You might have had a couple stars that have actually benefited from it. Trick Williams has been there. Oba Femi came out of there. They've benefited. You have gimmicks for them. You have catchphrases for them. You have a standing with them. They got the look. They got the track record. They've had the time to be down there and be very successful. So now we're at Oba Femi, who I don't even bring up much about, right? Very young, 26 years old. Currently NXT champion and former NXT North America champion. But now for him here, okay, he's been in the company through the Next in Line program since 2021. Debuted April 2023. We're coming up on 2 years with him right now. Right now, is there any possibility where if I said this, Trick Williams, Oba Femi, let's move them up to the main roster. Then Triple H and the folks have to go and determine, okay, then someone's spot has to be taken. Who are we taking down and taking away their spot on that main roster? Who are you taking right there? Juvenile delusional audience, who is there right now that you would take away at this moment if those two stars were to go ahead and move up? You got Roxanne Perez up there. I don't know if she's going to stay up there or not. But let's say this. Why do we have Stephanie Vaquer and Giulia down there in NXT? If they're bigger stars worldwide, more world renowned than the stars even normally in WWE, right? Let's move them up. So which stars are you going to take down off of that? Like, think about it like that. Which ones do you have right now that you go ahead and say, okay, they need to take somebody's spot in the upper mid card or main event? And who would you drop? But you notice that doesn't happen. Now, of some of the stars we have at the moment, the women might be a little bit more of a opening right there about who could be up towards the top and all. That's fine. But on the men's side, very crystal clear. Intercontinental title, that's all you're going to get right there. And then what they decided to do for the women? No, we're going to create more titles. We're going to create more titles. Why not? Because they're going to make it just like the men. Because they want to make sure that there's some participation trophies. IC title, North America title on the women's side, and then make sure IC US titles are just participation trophies. That's all they are. It doesn't matter what else they are in the way. That's how they want to put it. That's how they want to keep it. And they talked about what's on the SmackDown side. Andrade, you brought him back. What has he done? He's just kind of there as like a placeholder. But he has his spot too because he was an NXT guy. So he's not going anywhere. Street Profits, they have their spot too. They're not going anywhere. They're NXT guys. They are part of that whole facet right there. They're never going to lose their spot. Carmelo Hayes already has a spot for himself. He's never going to lose that spot. YS6, even though they're not on TV, they're always going to be around. Like, I think something with them, they've been off the map. We haven't even seen them. LA Knight will always have a spot. Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa will have their spots. That's how they are. I will say for the benefit, Jacob Fatu, he's light. And the fact they're kind of giving him something to work on right now, wonderful. Another fresh face. But maybe that's somebody that will actually, Jacob Fatu will take somebody's spot. I don't know. Like, the thing is with Jacob Fatu is like, I want him doing something as well. I mean, you're doing the thing where, okay, he's now going to go ahead and get himself embedded into storyline, but like, you never did anything about any kind of friction or dissolving of the mutiny bloodline. Like, there's been no animosity between Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu yet, right? Nothing like that. And I don't know why not, but they haven't decided not to do that yet. All he knows is that Cody still has to deal with Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu. That's it. And that's all embedded within the Elimination Chamber. Fine. So we know that if Fatu were to win the Elimination Chamber, that would be great to go ahead and see him up against Cody. They're not going to pull the trigger on that yet. I wish they would. It would be so uncommon, so unpredictable if Triple H pulled the trigger and said, Jacob Fatu, you're winning Elimination Chamber. You're going to take on Cody at WrestleMania. But they haven't done anything with him in terms of him. For the most part, he was just the enforcer for a short, not even a year, on this new bloodline, of which that faction lost, and basically has done nothing since. And then Jacob Fatu's done nothing in terms of, okay, he had a little back and forth with Braun Strowman, which has been parody booking. And now what are we doing? Now Fatu's going to go and step up to the big guys. And we don't know if Solo Sikoa is going to screw that up or not. But there's been nothing to resolve the whole bloodline thing right there anyway. Jacob Fatu, for no explanation, he's been the follower of Solo Sikoa, and all of a sudden, he's the top guy. So there was no friction at all. Nothing even explained. Nothing even interaction between Solo and Jacob Fatu to even make that explanation. Nothing like that yet. But we know on SmackDown we're trying to get that set up so they can actually talk. So then he did talk to Solo, and Solo is kind of like being apologetic. Lost to Olaf Alla Roman, has not been himself, let everyone down, let the family down, but he wants to go and take over the business. So he's supporting Fatu winning the Elimination Chamber qualifying match. And asks if Fatu understands him. So again, they're just like leaving it there. But then what they could do is, all right, are we going to do something where Solo's going to turn on Fatu at Elimination Chamber and then something happens? Because you're telling me that Solo Sikoa, being so power hungry, is going to just let Jacob Fatu just go ahead and take the spot? He's going to be that supportive and say, yeah, as long as one of us wins that match and we get the belt back for the bloodline, that's all that matters. I don't know. You got LA Knight and Shinsuke Nakamura now at each other. With LA Knight, I don't know, man. And then you had Miz confronting him before as well. And I'm like, we're getting nothing here. Like, you know, we did try LA Knight with the Miz when LA Knight was kind of getting pushed towards a certain level, all the way up to taking on Roman Reigns at Crown Jewel, and then nothing else happened after that. It just like fizzled out. His whole main event run. Like the push was so big, but it actually initially started with him and the Miz. And they never really did anything about that much. Nothing. Just another promo. Talk over each other, and that's it. Nothing else. All right, now getting into what we did get tonight that was significant over on AEW, I think they have been doing some things to kind of correct the direction in what they're doing, because I think what they've been doing now, as of late, with certain things where when you had with MJF doing the likes of Jeff Jarrett and other veteran stars like Dustin Rhodes, well, now we have the setup with him and Hangman Adam Page. And a feud we never got to see before. It's absolutely fresh. And the setup for it has been legendary. Let's go listen to what happened with MJF talking to Hangman Page and the real setup of that whole feud that's going to be coming up probably at Revolution. That's already been set up at Revolution now. It's already set as a match.
Did you love yourself after you ended the career of your mentor? Huh? After you absolutely demolished that worthless, talentless jobber hack, Christopher Daniels?
Don't you dare! Don't you dare! Christopher Daniels is 10 times the man that you will ever be. And if I could rip out my spine and give it to him, I would do it in a heartbeat. A 32-year career, 100 times around this globe. And if there's a wrestling company in our lifetimes, he gave a part of his life to it. And he went out fighting for his life.
He died a warrior's death, and I know CD. I know that he never would have had it any other way. He took care of professional wrestling even when professional wrestling did not take care of him. He is the best of us. All of us. And it's men and women like him that we have the chance to stand in this ring tonight. Don't you ever forget it.
I like the fact that we're not dealing so much with Death Riders here. Death Riders and Cope, that's the whole setup over there, and that's the direction we're going to get into, which is fine, as we're getting to Revolution. And then you have Hangman Adam Page and MJF, which is a great feud you're going to have here. Significant. The Christopher Daniels setup with that is good. Thomas Toni Storm coming off of her setup and winning off of Mariah May, which was wonderful. They're going to do that. Now we're going to go and see who Toni Storm handles with over Revolution. And Ricochet, Swerve Strickland, we're going to build up to that. Like, we're getting directions in some of the storylines right now with what they're going to do soon enough, which is good. I can take all that right there. It's great. You have the Ops and Patriarchy at each other right now. That's a good setup with the trios, which is good. I think with Samoa Joe finally making his way back from injury and working with Hook again works out well. It's nice to go and have that attachment once again. Chris Jericho now wants to take on Bandito for the Ring of Honor World title, and that's coming up on Collision. You had another match with Powerhouse Hobbs and Big Bill. That was quite a bit to things. Powerhouse wins the match this time around. And then for Mercedes Moné, we're going to just go into a setup for a match you're going to have with a star from overseas, a Stardom wrestler star, and Momo Watanabe. She's going to go through the AEW TBS title next coming up. That's the setup for that. So the New Japan influx is still going to be coming in with Momo Watanabe. Gabe Kidd is also going to be coming in and spending time in there. Fine. And right now, Orange Cassidy, Konosuke Takeshita will face each other for the AEW International title. And the winner takes on Kenny Omega at Revolution. So IC title, the international championship is all set up there. All they're going to do with that, fine. And so everything's just kind of like set up. That's what their whole plan is going to be. It's been better. I mean, the ratings are still not going to be, I don't think they're going to make them a dent much over 600,000 viewers again. But at least there's a little more correction on what they're doing right now of their booking. There's some freshness to the booking right now. It's gotten to some directions. I mean, the one thing I think would be really helpful is just to get us out of this Death Riders thing. But that's also the part where it's not so much where Triple H is in control and WWE of what the veterans want to do with their stuff right now and how they're not going to lose their spots. But for Tony Khan, I think for him it's been where there are certain people he has at that upper echelon that he brought in, and they got a lot of money in there, and he's letting the creative control come in. Maybe a little more than I would expect. You could feel that for Jericho, you could feel that for Cope, you could feel that for Moxley. That's what I feel like it is right now. I have not been a fan of Moxley converting Blackpool Combat Club into Death Riders. I hate it. I wish we would just have some kind of friction where there will be a dissolution of that as well, because it's not working. I hate Death Riders. It's one of the worst factions there's ever been. It's just not good. Oh, and the other thing I got to mention. So on NXT, we have another faction now of like disruptors. Another Retribution. Is that what we got? Like, is that basically what it was? Because I feel like that's what it was. I don't understand what that's all about, but we're back to that again. And I didn't see who it was, because I also saw that they inadvertently showed who they were on camera while wearing masks. So now Oba Femi has pretty much no one else to go and take on. You're not going to move to the main roster, even though he's still NXT champion. So now you're going to bring in Moose. That's what you can do instead. Fatal Influence deals with Vaquer, Giulia, and Jordan Grace. Okay. Ricky Saints confronts Ethan Page, and then Wesley, who's going to be his first opponent next week. Anyways. But then we have this new crew out here of disruptors that looks like Retribution or looks like Nexus or the Core or whatever. It's like factions with no real importance to them. When I look at the factions we have right now, aside from the Bloodline, the other version of the Bloodline, every other faction we have right now, whether it's Judgment Day, it's just, there are the set components of like why the Horsemen work so well, or why Inner Circle works so well, or why Evolution and WWE worked so well, or Degeneration X. Like, you had certain roles for these stars. It doesn't necessarily work that way here. And Judgment Day initially did, but it's also been like off by the wayside too. You can't just be putting people together just to put people together. There's a lot of illogical things being done in terms of factions. The favoritism among the stars they have right now, they're going to just keep because it's just the way they want to keep it. It just boggles the mind. But that's where we are in WrestleMania season. And at this moment, we'll get the Elimination Chamber, and we'll get a couple more matches. We're going to know what's going to be going for WrestleMania. That's fine. Good. But other than that, so much more that we could be saying that it's not correcting the ship right now. But the current culture, the current environment with Triple H, he's not going to change it. So we're going to be stuck like this. It's fine. Whatever. But I guess the fun part will be the juvenile delusional social media crowd that's going to continue to go ahead and shit on everybody like me talking about like this. Which you can do next week on another Wrestling Store podcast, because wrestling needs us.